This is it. Election Day is almost here, and there's a lot to consider before casting your ballot. It is our goal today to prepare you for the polls with a final primer about the issues that matter to you. Missouri voters will weigh in on several important propositions and constitutional amendments that could shape the future of education, health care, even labor laws in the Show Me State. We'll start with the two amendments getting the most airtime in the run-up to Election Day. Amendment 2 would legalize sports betting in the Show Me State, and millions of dollars are pouring into this campaign.
I care deeply about education. That's why I'm voting for Amendment 2.
You've no doubt seen the ad supporting sports betting from a group called Winning for Missouri Education. Heavily backed by online sports gambling companies, the group barely mentions gaming, focusing instead on education and the promise of tens of millions of dollars constitutionally guaranteed for Missouri schools. Critics don't buy it.
But the state's official analysis concluded Amendment 2 would allow them to pay zero gaming taxes to Missouri. That means $0 for Missouri schools.
A group called Missourians Against the Deceptive Online Gambling Amendment is challenging the claims of a windfall for education, pointing out potential loopholes a state audit flagged, letting betting companies avoid paying some of their state taxes. So who is right here? Well, the language of the amendment allows a 10% tax on gaming revenue, but there are a number of situations that let sports betting companies essentially write off expenses or avoid paying some taxes. For instance, operators can deduct up to 25% of the gross costs of promotional credits and free plays every month, and they can cut out costs paid for anything of value provided to and redeemed by customers. In fact, the language you'll see on your ballot shows the state estimates an unknown tax revenue, anywhere between $0 and $28.9 million a year, and that local governments don't know how much they'll see. Despite the uncertainty, September polling from Emerson College in the Hills shows a majority of likely Missouri voters support sports betting. Some 52% say yes to Amendment 2, with 25% saying no, 23% still at that point not sure which way they would go. Recently, I asked our roundtable of journalists to weigh in.
I think that the supporters of the sportsbook question in Missouri probably thought that they had more support than this Emerson poll indicates right now. So I think they're a little surprised about it. However, they're still up more than 2-1.
Interesting in those numbers, by the way, men are supporting that amendment at a much higher rate than women. 59% of men are in support of it, 46% of women, still more supporting than opposed, even on the women's side. So I do think it'll be interesting to see how those ads are targeted and what we should expect from those.
Yeah. Are you surprised at all by the 23% of voters who are still undecided on an issue like sports betting?
No, because not everybody bets on games. I mean, they make it seem like everybody does, but not everyone does. There are people out there that, just don't give a hoot one way or the other on sports betting. And the practice is when you get down at the end of a campaign and you've got an unsure or undecided vote, about half of those don't bother to vote at all.
Now, if sports betting doesn't get people to the polls, the next amendment on Missouri's ballots likely will. It's a polarizing issue that's been politicized for years. Amendment 3 is a petition-led push to reverse Missouri's near-total ban on abortion that went into effect more than 2 years ago. Voting yes allows abortion up to the point of fetal viability. That's when a fetus could live outside the womb, or to protect the life or health of the mother. It gives Missourians a constitutional right to make decisions about reproductive health care without the government getting involved. And it allows the state to regulate said health care and prevents the government from discriminating against or holding funding from people providing or obtaining reproductive health care. The fight to get this measure on the ballot took well more than a year. Republican state lawmakers even tried and failed to change the voter threshold to approve petition-driven constitutional amendments. Then came the court challenges over ballot language and even a push from opponents to remove it altogether.
We have not given up. We believe this Amendment 3 should be defeated, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that that happens.
Critics have pledged to wage more legal battles in Missouri if Amendment 3 passes. In the meantime, they've been vocal in their opposition to the measure. And many of their assertions are misleading or false. First off, critics have tried to claim that the phrase reproductive health care is too broad. They've worked to tie the amendment to health care for transgender Missourians, arguing that this amendment would legalize gender-affirming care for minors, a claim several legal experts, including a former Chief Justice of Missouri Supreme Court, shot down. Some critics also claim the bill greatly expands the list of providers who can perform abortions. In a letter sent to Catholics, the Bishop of the Diocese of Kansas City falsely claimed dentists or pharmacists could be called upon for the procedure if Amendment 3 passes. Again, that's not true. The same goes for parental consent laws. Those don't go away. The laws that govern abortion in Missouri in 2022 would still be on the books, barring any other potential legal challenges. Also, Amendment 3 would not allow unregulated, unrestricted abortions, despite what some billboards, ads, and politicians have said. Recently, I discussed that claim with the head of Planned Parenthood, which oversees some reproductive care in Kansas and Missouri. And one of the biggest criticisms that we've seen from candidates who've even been on the broadcast was this notion that if this passes, there will be no regulation. And we heard this a little bit 2 years ago in Kansas. You are in charge of clinics in Kansas. Abortion is legal there. Is that even true?
It's a total distraction. It is really frustrating because I do think people don't know enough about this care. But when you come to one of the health centers that we operate in Kansas, what you see is that it's like any other doctor's office. We are regulated, we follow national and local standards, we are proud to offer high quality care in a safe environment, and that is exactly what Missourians deserve. We don't deserve to be targeted and regulated out of existence. That is what the legislature has done. They have made medically unnecessary restrictions for years that really prevented Missourians from getting care. Abortion is health care, and it should be treated the same way every other type of care is treated.
In Missouri, if this amendment passes, there would be regulations in place, is what you're saying.
We would be regulated like every other type of care. What this would do is really shift the burden to the state to defend any restrictions it puts in place. So for a long time, we as the provider have had to say, this is how many patients can't get in, this is how difficult it is to get care, this is so out of line with national standards. Instead, the state has to say, no, this is why we think it's justified to make it more difficult to access. Missourians shouldn't be fleeing their home state to get this care.
By the way, Missouri is one of 10 states with abortion on the ballot this November. Voters in 7 states, including Kansas, have already decided to protect abortion rights in the 2.5 years since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This issue has won in every state where it's been up for a vote. We'll see what happens Tuesday.